Bienvenidos, fans of the hottest entertainment on the planet. Jaimé En Fuego here, and this is another review, my ongoing coverage from the Fantasia International Film Festival 2026. Yes, the landmark 30th anniversary of the festival. Pretty stoked. And yes, I am still covering it remotely this year, although, perhaps there's a possibility of getting up to the Great White North. But yeah, I'm here in the deadly desert of Arizona, which lives up to its name around this time of year. So yeah, being in Montreal, Québec, Canada would be rad status at this particular time of year. So possible next year. And for those who are there, soy envidioso, as I've been saying. But this was included in my preview of the opening weekend of the festival that runs from now until Sunday, August 2nd. So we still have like over 2 weeks left of the festival, or like right around there, 13, 14 days, something like that as of this filming. And yeah, it is entitled You Are the Film. And this is one where I guess the director and the writer, actually, Makoto Ueda, they are a staple of Fantasia and have been for the last 5-6 years, something of that nature, maybe even longer. But all kinds of accolades from previous writing duties at the festival. But this was their directorial debut, feature directorial debut. And it's not like a mammoth in runtime or anything. It's just barely in over an hour. But it just packs so much just heart and whimsy and just like such a... I hate to use a term like cute or sweet or something like that, but I mean, I could feel my teeth like rotting from the sugary goodness of this film because it just made me happy. It's just, good vibes throughout. It's a little bit over the top of some things that happen like later on in the film, most notably about the halfway point where there's a very interesting pivot that takes place. So I'm not here to spoil anything. This was a one-night only screening, unfortunately, though. So you're going to have to keep your eyes out at the festival circuit for it. Hopefully it'll, migrate its way maybe into a limited theatrical run or show up on a stream or VOD in due time. But yeah, this is a film from Japan. And so there are two main characters. So we have Madoka, I believe it was. So that is a girl who is a playwright, and she spends a lot of her time at this small little spot that is just above. It's like a Chicago, almost like a pub eatery, in small tiny little performance venue sort of spot. And so she has been writing and directing, I presume as well, just these different plays, and she has a very small core cast that just shift between different roles depending on what she's writing and producing and working on, so on and so forth. And then our second main character is named Kazuma, and Kazuma is also a art-centric person, although his passion is music in comparison. And so he is in a band where it's pretty obvious as you're watching the early scenes with him where he's having some drinks and kind of shooting the shit with his bandmates and stuff like that, that he is the leader. He is the de facto force in the group, the alpha, I suppose you could say. And yeah, he's the one who's really making concerted effort to sell concert tickets. And there's one member of the band in particular that he's kind of butting heads with because he doesn't think the guy is practicing enough, and he's simplifying some of the guitar work when they're playing their live sets. And so Kazuma's getting pissed off about that, and rightfully so. I think he even says at one particular point in the film where he's talking with this guitarist that he's you can't make good art unless your heart is into it, and so that's definitely true. I mean, that's why we get so much just very bland crap cranked out of the Hollywood system, and that is why I champion small little indie films like this. Doesn't matter what part of the world that they're coming from, man, or here in the States. There is always a much more concerted effort, from deep in the heart, passion, and that is in spades in this movie, man. I adored this film. It's in contention for one of my favorites of the festival, and I still haven't even got to the whole gimmicky conceit, the angle of the film, and that's because at the behest of one of Madoka, the girl who is the playwright and the director and everything, she's recommended to go see this film at a cinema that is nearby, and she's looking at the pamphlet almost like, how back in the day, and I think they still do this at the theater too, they have almost a lengthy list of a synopsis that you can read through, and it gives you plot beats throughout and all kinds of different stuff like that. So she is given this pamphlet about this film for her to go and check out, and yeah, I mean, she's kind of apprehensive at first, and the character says to her, "What? It's too much of a B movie for you," or something like that. And yeah, I mean, it's amusing, and she does decide to concede and go check it out. And it just made me homesick for well, not homesick, but just sentimental, I guess is the better term, for a place here in Phoenix that closed down. It was called Phoenix Film Bar. It was open for like, what, a decade plus, if not closer to 20 years maybe. But yeah, it closed down during the pandemic, but it was a similarly sized, like very small, very intimate art house little cinema that would show, you know, indies and, you know, some low-key classics, cult films, things of that nature. And so that's sort of very small place that she's in. She's by herself, and she starts watching this film, and she quickly realizes that she's watching the story of somebody else, but that other person is in fact Kazuma. And so he's watching her, she's watching him, and they quickly become aware that they can like actually like make communication with one another. Like they're talking to their respective screens. And yeah, that's about, I mean, I guess I can divulge a little bit more because of the fact that as they become aware that they're in these like branching sort of parallel universes that have a lot of overlap because they're in like the same city and, you know, frequenting a lot of the same places, including the Chicago that I mentioned, and like places of that nature that I guess the art community in this particular, I guess, neighborhood or borough or whatever you would call it, you know, they all just kind of, you know, make their frequent appearances there. And it's just, it's so cleverly written, and I hate to go back to the term sweet, but it is, you know, there's like a real endearing sort of chemistry between the two of them, because at first they're, you know, kind of at odds with one another, but then without getting too much into it, they find out ways that with each of their respective dilemmas, because there are problems presented in each of their creative dynamics. So, you know, Madoka has some issues with her theater troupe and how some of them are not sure about their current project without getting into too many details. And then Kazuma, I already mentioned some of his issues with that bandmate who doesn't really have his heart into it. And some other things transpired, you know, as the film progresses that add a little bit more just conflict and, you know, sense of danger and whatnot and potential consequence. And so they realize that they can help one another out because one of them will stay in the theater while the other one goes out and is interacting in everything that's going on in their life, and then they kind of switch spots, and so they observe, and then they can kind of give advice or, you know, coach one another. I mean, it's a really cool dynamic. It genuinely was. And it's very meta, it's very self-aware and just cognizant, and not just the characters but in the writing of this concept. And then we do even have a character that shows up at one particular time and is describing the situation to them as, yeah, it's a cinematic multiverse, you know, it's you were caught in an entanglement occurring in film space. So I mean, that's about as far as I want to go without getting too much into it. And the film does take an interesting turn about halfway through with one of the stories without getting into it. So that was caught me by surprise, but it just added more of just the endearing, almost like silliness to some of the concepts, and actually does veer even more into the realm of genre because, you know, I guess Ueda has, he's like the time travel like go-to is what they describe on the Fantasia website for his creative work that's been showcased there previously. So, I mean, once again, it's low budget kind of DIY indie filmmaking, but it works very well because we just have a couple locations. You know, we have that small little like restaurant, like pub kind of area that I mentioned, the spot where they're doing the performance of the plays, very small little art house theater, and then there's a lot of like tracking shots where they're just following characters as they, you know, just migrate from one of these spots to another as they're, you know, just kind of navigating the drama that seems to be just kind of growing, almost snowball downhill sort of scenario with them. And the supporting cast is amusing too. I mean, you've got a couple fun moments with the guy who runs this small little art house cinema, because they're coming and going and they're like, oh, can we please come back in? And he's like, at first he's cool with it, and then as it just becomes back and forth, he becomes irritated. And then the like time and space kind of janitor dude who shows up, he's a fun little miniature character. And then we do actually get some interesting backstory about some of the people in this play that Madoka has been working on, so we get a little bit of motivation and reasoning as to why they're having second thoughts about doing this this latest production of hers. And so, I mean, a lot of really fun nuances and just super clever writing, and especially in an age where so much has been like multiverse, alternate timelines, branching paths, all this. I mean, it's been done to death in like the superhero movies and in various other things. I mean, my boy Stephen King is the guy who really made this very popularized in the mainstream in a lot of ways with his novels in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and especially the Tower stuff. But I mean, I was just such a big fan of this movie. I really wish that it was playing a second time at the festival so I could champion it to all of you who are in attendance personally to go check it out. But also, if you're a fellow virtual press member, I mean, check out that master list that was sent out by the Fantasia people, and seek out You Are the Film, because it is most definitely worth getting your eyes on. I just love this sort of and I'm glad that it didn't veer completely into a certain territory that I was expecting it to. So that was another pleasant surprise. Not that I would have had any issues if it did, but I thought there was going to be a certain dynamic between a couple characters and maybe some indications, but I feel like I'm kind of walking on eggshells now, and I don't want to spoil anything. But I did appreciate that this narrative went in some places that I wasn't expecting. I really dug that. Went places I was not expecting, but also left room for possibility as things are winding down too. So yeah, guys, that is my thoughts on the Japanese film, writer-director Makoto Ueda, and this directorial debut from them. It was rad status. I had a blast with this. It was very, very just, I don't know, that feel-good sort of tale, and I always appreciate that, especially when you watch so much dark, dour shizzle like I do, especially dealing with horror and things of that nature. When you get something like this that just really livens the spirits, it's always a very, very nice injection of positivity. So I extend the grande gracias up in Jaimé En Fuego. You can find Wall on all social media sectors: Twitter, X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. He's here, obviously. You guys know the drill: the like, share, subscribe, sort of business. Comment if you've seen this film. I believe this was the North American debut. I'm just gonna double check right quick because I would like to actually have that bit of information. Yep, North American premiere. So this had shown previously at I'm guessing some festivals over in the Eastern Asia part of the world and whatnot. But yes, this is definitely one to keep your eyes out for because it was great. I just really dug the hell out of it. So yeah, guys, once again, Fantasia 2026 30th Incarnation runs through the 2nd of August, so there's still about 2 weeks left of the festival. If you're close to Montreal, Quebec, if you have the opportunity to attend, there's still dozens and dozens of awesome films of the comedic, dramatic, animation, horror, science fiction. I mean, all across the board. It is one of the, if not, according to people like Guillermo del Toro and Quentin Tarantino, the premier genre festival on the planet. So if you have the opportunity, definitely make the journey. And if not, if you're part of the virtual press contingent like me, get on it. Contact the team behind You Are the Film, because it was terrific. So once again, y'all, I've been Fuego. Y'all have been Rad Status. And until the real of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, sin amigos. Constant viewers, say thank you. Hopefully we have been well met. Share more of this film palaver sooner rather than later. And until the next Fantasia flick that I will be presenting to y'all, adios.